This is Drive Time Prop, 30 minutes of jam-packed, up-to-the-minute news from a perspective of truth, liberty, and justice every weekday. This is Monica Perez.
And I'm Brad Binkley.
Today's top story is that James Comey, in a letter from a report from the Inspector General, was found to have violated policy and set a dangerous example, but there will be no charges. So he claims complete vindication, tweeted out some obnoxious tweets that I'll accept your apology now for calling me a liar. And the upshot for me was that it validated his firing because what he did was bad and wrong. But in his mind, it validated his exoneration. And that, to me, was the art of ambiguity, straight up. Like, their finding was absolutely similar to Mueller's, where he said, oh, Trump he might have obstructed justice, but we're not bringing any charges at this time. So one thing that I noticed about the report was that he was found by the Inspector General not to have, neither he nor his lawyers were found to have released information to the media. However, in regular law, the fact that he gave it to a friend of his and directed him to release it to the media, in any other circumstance, that would be considered, he would be considered legally culpable for that. So it seems a little fishy, but it plays into the dialectic. So that was the top story for today.
Yeah, I love seeing James Comey tweet out his vindication.
He's definitely trying to be provocative, and people are making fun of him for it.
Absolutely, super obnoxious. The Democrat field has been cut down to 10, from 400 to 10, and they're going to be all on the same debate stage, and CNN has been hyping up what everybody's been wanting to see. They said that the two primary candidates, the old establishment centrist, is going to be battling against the slightly less older progressive Joe Biden versus Elizabeth Warren. If, and only if, Elizabeth Warren can take the progressive throne of the Democratic Party from the slightly older than both of them, Bernie Sanders. So this is where the Democratic Party is. We have three people who, if they weren't doing this job, would be living in an assisted living community as the primary contenders and the ones that are being hyped up as the top best candidates that the Democrats can field.
I find it impossible to believe that the Democrats really want to win, and this is who they're promoting.
It's crazy.
I don't even believe the polls.
Yeah.
Another kind of parallel story to what happens with Trump and how these political personalities take the stage. Boris Johnson, the UK's Trump, I guess, bad haircut or whatever, and obnoxious, like Bolsonaro in Brazil. He's leading the charge as the prime minister now on the conservative side of getting the UK out of the EU through Brexit. So the current deadline for Brexit is October 31st, which would be a no-deal Brexit. They would crash out of the EU. Seems messy to me. I don't think that's a great thing to do. But the Labour leaders, Jeremy Corbyn, want to stop that, want to pass a resolution in Parliament that they're not allowed to have a no-deal Brexit. What Boris Johnson did in response to that was that he asked for prorogation, I think is the word for it. It's not terribly unusual, but it will be rather lengthy and of a weird timing. And the Queen signed it, where Parliament is not sitting, is suspended. He's suspending Parliament from September 9th to October 14th. And so Parliament's going to start September 3rd until September 9th, and then they can sit again from October 14th until the Brexit deadline, which is October 31st. So Boris Johnson's point is they are not going to be able to pass legislation for a no-deal Brexit, but it may trigger a request or an agreement to push that no-deal Brexit deadline out further. I mean, this is definitely game playing. And I still will believe Brexit when I see it. They continue to blame the sticking point on the fact that they don't want to re-erect a hard barrier between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. So I just think games are afoot, but that was a top story today that Boris Johnson with the help of the Queen, suspends Parliament for a month.
Yeah. Well, they certainly enjoy bashing him in similar ways that they bash Trump. Lawrence O'Donnell apologized last night for statements that he had made on his MSNBC show the previous night, which is a story that you actually covered on our show yesterday. On Tuesday, O'Donnell reported that Trump's Deutsche Bank deal had 2 Putin-linked Russian oligarchs as co-signers on it, and he had no evidence for that. He only had a source, and it hadn't been verified, which he admitted. So he came out yesterday after Trump's lawyer threatened a lawsuit, and he quickly apologized for it. And the media was talking about how he shouldn't have done that, and there's usually a vetting process before you usually have to confirm the anonymous source through your network before you can get it approved to do it on the air, yet he did it anyway, which gives the illusion that they have standards like that, which I don't believe at all. I believe the standard
and power,
yeah,
and that these guys are like emotionally connected to these stories. Like Trump would pay to have prostitutes pee on Obama's bed. I mean, like as if there's these personal passion. Maybe there are, but I don't think he's going rogue for her. I guess it sounds like it.
Well, he's
People
not
are
in
find it
trouble.
hard to believe.
If it was such a big deal, he's not in trouble, and they're letting it slide. And I guess the argument could be, well, what's his name? Williams is on this network, so you can get away with anything.
Yes,
but
right.
What this story did is this is another publicity stunt. I don't ever watch Lawrence O'Donnell because I find him completely inauthentic. I think he tries so hard to be outraged, and I don't believe any of it. And I didn't know about that story until you told me, and I hadn't heard anything about it except from you until every single network, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, reported his apology. So by apologizing after getting threatened, the story became more popular than it originally was, and it implanted this idea in people's heads that, oh, Trump had a Russian cosigner. Because people suspect that anyway who don't like them. So this story was like an advertisement for his original story that had no sources.
That's interesting because the only reason I even picked up on it is that I read in the Wall Street Journal the story about the Deutsche Bank documents that have not been released, but Deutsche Bank said they had them. It said absolutely nothing about Russian cosigners at all.
Yeah.
So when I heard this other story, I was like, I'm thinking if there was anything to that, the Wall Street Journal probably would have written it. So, yeah, now people are going to think, oh, I know what that says. It says Russian cosigners.
Exactly.
It definitely does not. Or it might still. So another thing that, of course, is all about bashing Trump on the surface, but I believe underneath it all is really about building private institutions for the prison industrial complex. It was announced today that the Trump administration is using private companies to build in 3 different states shelters for families for the immigrant children who have to be released from isolated custody or segregated custody. They're going to try to house 1,370 children in these different places. And the states are raising an outcry. Certainly the one in California is raising an outcry. I think it's Florida, Virginia, and California, saying we don't want that horrible scar of human deprivation. But this is where the dialectic, the thesis, the antithesis, and the synthesis come in, is that, first of all, for some reason, the border, this phenomenon has increased by 400% or something crazy like that, from 100,000 to close to 500,000 year over year. There's just something going on. People are being pushed. I've seen the Pueblos Sin Fronteras coming out with these movements of people. It's just being pushed. And the Democrats are saying these conditions are unbearable. the Trump administration is fulfilling the same law that Obama fulfilled. And the answer, and I picked up on it a long time ago, but just forgot kind of what I had originally thought the game was here. And now it comes back to, yes, we are going to respond to what the Democrats are saying by pumping money into the private prison system or the whatever institutional capacity. It's usually the same thing as the prisons. It doesn't sound like a lot of beds, but, the way the government works, that could be a lot of money, and it could be just the beginning. Once they get this through, you won't even know if they 10 times it.
Yeah. So we talked about a story yesterday on the Propaganda Report, our deep dive podcast, which will be out later today, the Popeye story, how an activist showed up to Popeyes and was registering people to vote while people were waiting in line for the famous chicken sandwich that's now no longer available. Well, President Obama chimed in and he praised the 17-year-old high school kid, the activist, who set this up and got people out to vote, which I thought was interesting because it revealed a little bit more information about the story that I hadn't seen before, and that's that the kid didn't set this up all by himself, which I think we probably both suspected. He had
You said if he had, he should get a campaign job for anyone going.
Exactly.
Of course, yeah. That's why, because it seems pretty professional thinking.
Yeah, that's because he had somebody who's currently in a campaign helping him do it. He had a woman named Stephanie Sneed, who is a lawyer running for a seat on the school board council in Charlotte, North Carolina, who set it up and, kind of made him the front
Where
of
was it? Where was his vote recruitment thing? What
Charlotte.
State? Oh, it was there. She was a local.
Yeah, so she's building her resume.
Well, but she used a front man. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's nice.
But now it came out, right, that she did wrapped in the glow of Obama.
Yeah. You got to let the young people lead, they say.
Well, I thought that your observation that what they did was they got people to go to get the Popeye sandwich as a political statement against Chick-fil-A, and that while they were so they have associated, they could get people to come out, even if they don't want a chicken sandwich, as virtue signaling or whatever. And that put a new twist on my thinking about how some of this advertising is going, to where it appeals to some people, but it definitely puts some people off. And I was thinking, on the one hand, AT&T, I think it was a Super Bowl commercial. I've only heard it on the radio. I did not see it, but they have these. Well, AT&T had a lot of commercials like this where it just was very identity skewed. So, like, if there was a white guy in it, he just seemed stupid.
Yeah.
Or I think that, like, there was I hear on the radio all the time, I think it's AT&T, the gay couple who's camping in the outside in the winter in Chicago or something like that. And I thought, why would AT&T do that? Why does Gillette say men suck? Why are they doing that? It seems very politically motivated to me, that it's purely about CEOs really being political plants a lot of times, and not simply shareholder value creators. But I did have some sense that maybe after you said that they do take, they are willing to sacrifice one segment of the population in order to get absolute loyalty from another section.
Yeah.
I also think that, like, I noticed there's one ad of Sephora Hourglass makeup. And Hourglass, like, very female image, but the models seem to me, I don't know if they're all male or if they're kind of androgynous looking, but I thought, wow, you don't need any politics to realize that if they could get men to wear makeup, they would really double their sales. Like, that could just be a purely profit-driven thing.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I thought was it had political overtones, and this is just more of a pandering thing, I think. Not as much as, like, that Popeyes thing that you pointed out was really brilliant. Like, it was just so it got people to get off the couch for political reasons to buy a chicken sandwich. The owner of Timberland and Vans, and I think North Face, they said they're going to stop buying leather from Brazil because of the Amazon fires and how leather contributes to the destruction of the world's rainforests without evidence. I just think let's do some homework first, because this is such a politically charged, obviously two-sided, misrepresented story.
Yeah.
That for them to do that, if that's a public company, I mean, I think you should be able to have a case against them of making bad, intentionally, knowingly making business decisions that will hurt their bottom line. But I don't think there's any out for that when it comes to politics.
And that's the type of stuff that I think that we're going to continue seeing more and more, especially after the Popeyes thing. Is there companies that are going to be trying these types of techniques that Popeyes so successfully executed?
Yeah, I believe it. And then that reminded me of the what was the story you had about Chappelle?
Dave Chappelle released a new stand-up special 2 days ago. And mind you, 3 or 4 days ago, he was kind of a progressive hero because he did a show for the victims of the Dayton shootings up in Ohio and was very much in the gun control
He's
field.
from Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, everybody loved him. Everybody
Yeah.
loved him until he released his special the next day, and then everybody hated him except people who like comedy. They think he's brilliant because people are saying this is people saying this makes him up there with one of the best of all time. I don't know if I agree with that, but I've watched part of it and it's really good. And Chappelle makes edgy jokes. That's what he's always done. But every article from Vice News or from what would be considered left-wing media, same thing. He's transphobic. He's a bigot. How dare he do that? How dare he not heed the complaints that have been made from the trans community about his jokes for years, yet he refuses to stop. He refuses to do what they tell him. He continues joking about trans people. Trans people are like 0.6% of the population. If you're catering your entire set around what trans people want, you're not going to have too many people watching your show. It's crazy.
That is part of what they're trying. I mean, that is the whole point of chilling and political suppression, which, by the way, I believe will have to be the end of comedy, even humor, because humor is a disruption in your mind's expectations.
Yeah.
And if you can't expect, if you're not permitted to expect anything based on your experiences or the way the human mind works, where you just look at patterns, you look at what you think is normal just so that you can see that tiger in a tree. That's how you work. And humor is, you think that's that's a tiger, but it's really pajamas. It's like, that's just how it works. So you have to have the standards there. You have to be looking for, it's the anomaly that makes it funny. But Chappelle, I don't know. I really respected him. Oh, and by the way, with him, if you want to find something offensive to trans people, there was an interview that I've seen more than once, numerous times, where he was talking about how they always want to put black men in a dress, and he was not having it. So one day he came to work, and in his trailer in his dressing area was a dress. And he said, I'm not putting that on. I'm not doing that skit. I'm not doing it. And he said that they were pressuring him so hard. They're just like, come on, you can do it. Like, just pressure. And he used to talk about those kind of pressures. He had like a female lead he wanted in a show he was going to do, and they just did not want him to use the person he wanted to use because they wanted him to pander to a certain demographic need or politically acceptable thing, and he was just like, I've had it. And then I think this was an interview about why he walked away from the whole thing, went to Africa for a while, and then he came back. And I remember him doing those Netflix specials. I was so excited he came back. The first one was really good, and then by the last one, it was terrible and just, not funny. It was all messagey, I thought, if I recall correctly, the orator. But he mentioned a couple of times, like, how much you want that big, easy money, and sometimes you just got to do what you got to do kind of impression I got from those. And when somebody else had just kind of thrown an offhand thing like, he's sold out, I thought, maybe this is... Maybe just getting him back on the reservation, as they say, was a kind of sellout for him, because he needed, his thing was to be really, truly independent. Like, he was truly independent. And I felt like that's why he had to just walk away, because the pressure to be creative and fit inside a box that somebody's putting out for you has to be unbearable.
Yes, I recall that. He had some people believed like the Illuminati had gotten to him, as like a theory that he used to have. That's the thing about this, is he always makes fun of everyone. And he opened up this special by making fun of white people. And he hits every gender and culture. He makes fun of everybody, yet trans people in these articles are supposed to be exempt from that. I thought it was equality. I thought we were supposed to all get made fun of equally, like we want to do everything equally, yet there seems to be these people on these really progressive networks that are like monitoring comedy. I mean, you don't have to watch it. I don't like these feminist comedians. I think they're terrible. They're offensive to me, but I'm not out there protesting that you need to get them off air and shut them up. I just don't watch them.
Right. Yeah, free will.
Yeah.
I mean, what happened to that? That's the thing. That's the thing. That if we are not capable of making our own decisions, then we're not capable of self-governance. And then then what they're saying to us is you really need tyranny.
Yeah.
You really need, and in which case I'll take a monarchy. I want a monarchy where they actually feel like you're the family, that they have this one person, one head. So like if things go wrong, see, at least with the monarchy, if things went wrong, you had a focus and people could come off with his head. And your children, you want to leave a legacy for your children. You want to teach them how to govern. I'm not promoting monarchy, but I'm saying a technocracy, an anonymous technocracy, all powerful, there is absolutely no resistance to that. There is no way to resist that at all.
Yeah, but they want control over it.
Yeah. So anyway, that's real mind control there. Okay, so I don't know if you saw this. The FBI is looking into the cameras that were malfunctioning outside Epstein's cell.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they'll come up with then, but who cares? Like I keep getting back to the original idea, which is there's no reason. It doesn't matter. It does not, although your idea is that if Trump is really out there to exonerate or to actually hunt down the pedophiles and human traffickers, which is a QAnon thing from way back.
Yeah.
That is the theme of the Trump is Batman movement.
It's called the Storm, is what they called it.
Oh, is that what JJ sent me, that hilarious meme of Trump saying I am the storm?
Yeah.
It was just funny on its face. I didn't realize it was because I noticed it triggered some people and I was like, it's just funny. But I guess it's not just funny because there's more to it than that. So another thing that was big in the news today is that injuries and apparently the first vape-related death, to the point where I think it was Juul's CEO said, if you do not smoke, do not just take up vaping. It is not for the non-smoker. But, of course, Juul is criticized. The vaping companies are criticized because they do target. Well, they have flavors that seem to target young people. I think it's rampant in middle schools and stuff. Like, I do think. My kids talk about it. People do vape. So I just feel like if you can't tell in what format God gave it to you, then you don't need it. There's other ways to get your nicotine. But see, are these unintended consequences of being just completely intolerant of smoke? I don't know.
They're encouraging people to stay away from black market oils that go in the vape.
Oh, well, nicotine is a very dangerous drug. So if you're going to get overdosed, that's what I figured. The risk would be overdosing on nicotine.
Yeah.
So there's other stuff that's been kind of top of mind today. One thing was that Trump's planning to pull out troops from Afghanistan, and I'm thinking, have we still not done that? Hasn't it been 18 years since 9/11? 18 years? Didn't they kill Osama bin Laden? Like, what are we doing there? I mean, doesn't Saudi Arabia feed the Sunni terrorists into Syria? Like, are we still pretending like we're fighting that fight?
Yeah.
Because the Sunnis are on our side. So I don't understand what we're doing in Afghanistan.
It's going to be 2050, and there's going to be candidates going, I will finally get us out of Afghanistan.
Yeah, I mean, it's endless war. Endless war.
Today's Individual Rights Day, by the way, so happy Individual Rights Day.
Thank you. I think every day is Individual Rights Day.
Just today.
Without a doubt. Just today. I got a couple of other things. Did you see the article that Dean tweeted to us on HARPA?
I did.
Not HARP, not DARPA, HARPA.
It's they bred, it sounds like.
Yes. Well, I think that it's there both to please people who like that stuff and to trigger beyond the limits of a person's self-control. Anyone who's like, okay, you want to combine HARP and DARPA, what?
Yeah.
But what it is it's the Health Advanced Research Project Agency. They're trying to push Trump into using this as his legacy. And I'll just tell you, the excuse that you're going to do something that encroaches on people's rights and uses taxpayers' money and falls completely outside of the limits of the Constitution and excuse it in terms of, well, this is your legacy is actually, I don't like it. And it's not new, but what it is it connects mental health issues with signs of future violent behavior.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they say that it's going to be all voluntary and that there's going to be all these privacies respected, which is exactly what they said when Obamacare came out. They're like, we're not going to let pediatricians ask people about their gun ownership. And then after Sandy Hook, they did. These DNA testing companies, the FBI is tapping into them without any legal documentation whatsoever to just blanket test DNA to find relatives. Not even the people, they're not even suggesting that the people they're looking at are criminals, that they have any probable cause. It's that they're looking for the relatives of those people. I mean, there's no legal justification for that. GlaxoSmithKline is working with 23andMe to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars to use that information for medical reasons. And they bait and switch us with the privacy stuff. They're like the street level facial recognition, for example, are not supposed to have like actual identifiers, but they oftentimes do. And so the privacies that they could put in by totally disconnecting the identifier with the data, they do not put in. So it will be, even if maybe they do it in the beginning, that stuff just slips away. And let me tell you where they're getting the data that they're using to assess connections between mental health and violent behaviors I'm sure it's to assess pre-crime. And what one of the lawmakers said or organizers said, this is to investigate how people should be treated and not have guns. Like, it wasn't even grammatically correct. It was like, yeah, okay, and not have guns.
Yeah.
And this is how they're getting the information. They want to combine data and AI through information gathered from things like Apple Watches, Fitbits, Amazon Echoes, and Google, so that they can identify risk factors when it comes to mental health issues that could indicate a violent behavior.
Well, so now we're starting to see what the purpose of all these smart devices are, how they're going to be used.
Yes, and that is one of the big things, is that all this Internet of Things, the data, it wouldn't be, if you could trust anybody to actually disconnect the data from the identifier, it would be less bad. Mm-hmm. But that's where the value is. They're not going to do that. You can't count. That's the whole purpose. So one of the things they said was that that Republicans, this is in the article Dean sent me, Republicans are like this stuff because it gets away from like gun control measures, which is such crap. They're just saying that. It's clearly a gun control measure among many other things. And the people who are pushing it said if they can get Ivanka to adopt it as her pet project, they have a good chance of cramming it in there. I don't even think it requires legislation, to be honest.
Very interesting.
Not good.
Yeah. You guys can find your Drive Time Prop every afternoon at 4 p.m. on thepropreport.com or your favorite podcasting platform, and we will talk to you tomorrow.